All right, so I'm really kind of excited to go through this because as we always talk about, this is that time of year where we start planning for everything. We're less than 100 days from the end of the year, so this is the time when we start really seeing the things we can do now really to set the stage and get a visual and an understanding where that is. So I'm gonna go through a couple things with y'all today. We're gonna talk about setting some goals. We're gonna talk about the value of it. We're gonna talk about how to generate these leads, how to generate these conversations, and just some concepts that'll hopefully help y'all get excited about this year because this is one of those years where, as we've always talked about, it really is a process. And so that's what I wanted to talk about. The reason why we're doing this now is because if we understand the process of sowing and reaping, this is that time where when we plant something, it has to be nurtured. It has to have time to grow. It has to have time to us to fight off some of the weeds, some of those things to get to a place where we can reap. So in real estate, as we talk about in all of our masterminds, it's a 90-day period from the time that we're sowing till we're reaping in most cases, whether that be taking a listing, whether that be talking to someone on a listing, whether it be working with buyers. So we're going to talk about some things now because we're less than 100 days to the end of the year so that we can get all of that done. Does it make sense, everybody? All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to kind of go through and really talk about the fact that this is the separation season. It's not just this season of year. I've always said that this fourth quarter is that separation season. It's that time when a lot of people will just coast into the end of the year. They'll either say, well, it's been a great year, and then all of a sudden they just kind of coast into Thanksgiving, they coast into Christmas, or they say, well, it's been a tough year, can't wait for next year to start. And they kind of coast to the end. This is the time in my business that every single time that I leaned in, this is when I got some of that extra juice, so to speak, and I really ran through the tape, so to speak, going into that next year. So I'm gonna talk about some specific strategies there, morning, and then we're gonna go through and talk about some of the things that we're gonna be doing to hopefully get these things set up for you. Biggest thing I wanna talk about is the main reason I love setting goals this way is that it does give us the opportunity to have something we're shooting for. It's hard to hit a target we can't see. I had a friend of mine who was in 7th group, Special Forces group. He did 7 tours as a team leader. He's shot hundreds of thousands of rounds with a pistol. And I have shot at a pistol a little bit. But I bet you that I could outshoot him this morning if I blindfolded him and I spun him around and he didn't know where he was shooting. And I know that sounds kind of crazy, but let's be real. And a lot of times in our business, we don't have a target we're shooting towards. We don't have something we're working towards, so we don't even know if we're going in the right direction. So what we're going to do today is really get a target, and it's not necessarily something that we're just absolute that we have to hit, but we're going to get a target we're heading in the direction of, and then we can make a course adjustments as we go through the year if need be. Hopefully, as we've seen, like Jay, we've seen it move those things higher. And we've talked about moving those goals higher. These are things that we've done in the past and we're going to continue to do, but we have to have a starting point, and that's what we're going to do today. This was from a friend of mine, Will Cooper. I love the way that he said this. This was basically the goal achievement cycle. He's out in Utah property. He's a great teacher, trainer. And one of the things that he said is there's really a cycle to goal achievement. The first thing is you have to define your goals. So we have to know what it is that we truly want and why we want those things. Then we need to establish where we are, what is it that we have right now, where are we starting at, where are we going to come from, and then we want to look at design the strategies and the plans to achieve it. Scoreboard, track, and accountability. For those of you that are in the accountability groups, obviously that's what we do on a weekly basis. So we want to make sure that we've got a group around us that is keeping us on track, that we're reporting to, so to speak, so that we continue to move in that right direction. And then we're going to do monthly and quarterly evaluations. This is the time, like we've done, and I've done it with a number of y'all, where we're talking about, okay, here's where we are now, here's where we were trying to get to, we need to make some adjustments on activity levels, on things we're doing, or on the goals that we're wanting to achieve so that we reset those things on a quarterly and sometimes on a monthly basis. So I'm going to go through and talk about what a SMART goal is, because a goal is not just something that we just say, well, I hope we get there. It has to have specific things involved so that we make sure that we have it in a pattern where we can achieve those goals. It starts with the S, standing for specific. What is it that we will be accomplishing? What is it that we want to accomplish? Next is the M, that stands for measurable. How are we going to measure this? How are we going to break this down, this annual goal in some cases, to a daily activity, which we're going to do in just a few minutes. Also, is it achievable? Is it really doable? The problem is that if you set goals so high and that you can't reach them, you begin to get frustrated, and it just gives you that opportunity to possibly quit or to slow down. So we want to have something that is achievable in a way where we begin to build some of that momentum. Also relevant. Does it align with with all your other goals? So if your goal is to be successful at your business and it's at the detriment of relationships, it's not very good. If it's not in line with everything in your life, spiritually, physically, emotionally, business-wise, relationally, all those things, if it's not in alignment, then we're going to have trouble making these things work. And also, time-bound. We have to have a time frame with which we are achieving these goals. And we're going to talk about how to break these annual goals down to quarterly, monthly, and then weekly, and then even daily goals so that we can have those activities. So here's what we're going to start with, and you've got this in your packet, and if some of y'all are watching this on the video and you want a copy of this, we're going to put up a QR code right here, somewhere on here, where you can see and download this. Also, if you're watching this on your phone, you can just go into the description on YouTube or Facebook if you're watching this, and we'll have a link where you can pick up a copy of all of these slides as well as this. But this is basically the pattern, and you don't need to do this right now. I want y'all to think about this, and then I'd love for you to come back. I'll be glad to sit down and go through this with you, but set up these goals in a way. I'm going to show you the pattern. What we want to start with, and this is just, basically we want to start with what's the desired income goal, because I'm going to speak specifically to business goals. All of these patterns will apply to other parts, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but I'm going to speak specifically today to your business goals. So what is that desired income? And then we also want to start with, again, going back to where are we? What was your average sales price last year? Now, we didn't add this in here, but I would also say to add in there, what is your desired average sales price for 2024? Because that's going to give you an idea of where you are and how many transactions we need. So here's the formula for us to come up with this. We want to know what the net dollars are on each transaction to understand how many transactions we need to get down to the daily activities we need to achieve that number of transactions. So here's what we're going to start with, okay? And I'm going to show you an example here, and they're all in your packets as well. Your average sales price, whatever it was last year or whatever it is that you're desiring next year, and I can work with you on how to increase your average sales price, times the average commission rate. So whatever that is, depending on the price point, it could be 2.5%, it could be 3%, whatever it is for your average transaction, and then times your commission split. So I just use this as an example, okay? You'll plug your own numbers in, but $500,000 average sales price times a 3% commission is $15,000 in gross commission times a 75% split would get $11,250 average net commission. So you'll figure this out where it will be. This just made the numbers easy for me doing it this way. You'll figure out what those numbers are for you for an individual transaction. On an average transaction, I would encourage you to go back over your last 12 months, total the number of transactions you have, divide it by your total income, find out what that is for you, or you can do it by this way, and you're going to come up with that number that you're looking at on an average transaction. Now here's where we move into the transaction goal, okay? This is this, and I'm going to go through this relatively fast because this is something you need to take your time on your own, but we're not going to do that today. We can do that individually, or we can do that as a group, or however we decide to do that. Your transaction goals. So we need to know how many transactions are needed to meet that income goal, because we just figured out how much we're going to make. So the next step is to take that desired income, that annual income, and divide it by the net dollars you on average get per transaction after your split. So here's this example using those numbers. Now I just use $202,500 because we live in an amazing market. Every single one of you in here has the opportunity to generate well in excess of that. Our average agent in our company generates this much. So desired income of $202,500 divided by $11,250 is 18 transactions. That's 1.5 transactions based on what we just looked at on those things. Now, y'all, you have to understand, I had somebody come into the office the other day, and it is all mindset, because you have to understand, I had an agent come into the office, sit down with me, this was literally 3 days ago, sat down in my office and said, this market is horrible. I can't get buyers to move up to where prices, when sellers think the prices are too high, interest rates are too high, there's all these obstacles. And I sat there and listened to that mindset, and then we were waiting on a phone call, because we were heading over to congratulate Ann Winicky for closing $64 million in 3 months. And I walked into her office an hour and a half later, and guess what she said? Can you believe how good this market is? I can't keep up. Look at this. I got all these contracts. I can't even get to them. It's a mentality, and it's an opportunity for us to serve. So what is it that you see? Do you live from a place of abundance or a place of lack? Now listen, I'm not telling you there's not going to be obstacles, because there are. it's not a matter if we're going to have struggles, it's how are we going to react to them. And what are we going to do with those struggles in a way that we continue to build momentum to be able to serve more people. So what we're going to do is just looking at this gives us an idea of the number of transactions goal. This gets us now to a place where we can start talking about the action steps to get there. So here's the conversations. I think we've all, y'all heard me say this so many times, 50 real estate related conversations generates one transaction. Now, you could see that in your first 50 conversations that it takes 100 on your first one. This is over time. So we're going to look at this on an annual basis to what it takes, because over time these averages absolutely work out. And in reality, if you're making 1,000, 1,500 conversations a year, you're going to get better at those conversations, and it's going to go down from 50 to 35. It's going to go down sometimes to even less than that. So what we want to do though is focus on the activities that we know are going to generate those things. So here's your annual conversations goal. Your transaction goal times 50, that's the number of conversations, equals that. So the number of conversations, so if we want to have 18 transactions, and we know it's going to take 50 real estate related conversations, we need 900 annual conversations. Now these are real estate related conversations. So think of it this way. Now we can break this down to a monthly goal. And when we start doing this, you realize what these numbers really break down to. So if we're doing that 900, for example, and we divide that by the 12 months, that tells us we need 75 real estate related conversations. Now, that sounds like a lot, but here's what it looks like on a weekly basis. On a weekly basis, we're going to divide the 75 by 4. I kind of got an error there. But 75 by the 4 weeks, that's going to give us 18.75. I'm going to round that up to 20 conversations a week. Real estate specific, sales oriented related conversations. If we break that down to a daily basis and 5 days a week, we're talking about 20 conversations for the week divided by the 5 days. 4 specific real estate related conversations a day, every day consistently, is what will generate these things. The biggest thing is do you understand that and believe it? Because we've seen it. I mean, there's certain people, and listen, what is a conversation? Because that has changed over time. You know what I mean? It used to be, it was a real estate, hey, this is Jimmy Burgess. I saw this house. What do you think? Now it's become, Jay uses direct messaging. Jay uses social media. Texting is some things that have been working, you know. What is it that you do that is a real estate related, where that you're staying top of mind, you're absolutely offering some value, and the real estate market becomes part of the conversation? Every single time we do that, it adds value. The other thing it does, and we didn't do this in here, is when you start doing this, you could break this down. If I need 900 conversations divided by 200 and 2,000, whatever that was your goal is, all of a sudden you start saying, well, wait a minute, every single time I pick up this phone, it's worth X number of dollars, 35, 50, whatever it is. And it begins to give you that ability to continue to do those things. Who is in our group that does that? Do you remember? Somebody was telling us that the other day. Do you remember who that was? Who was it? Lauren, was that you that did that? Where you were talking about, you understood that the number of conversations are worth a certain amount, or was that somebody else in our group? Okay, I think we had somebody, because I remember that this past week when we were doing that, they were talking about the fact that, hey, I broke it down and my conversations are worth, I think it was like $32 per conversation. And literally it gave us that capability to understand that every time I had a real estate related conversation, whether they did anything or not, it was like cashing a $32 check. Whatever it is for you, it may be higher. You know, for some of us that have the higher price points, it's even higher on the average call there. So this is a way that we can break down some of these conversation goals. Now the question becomes, how do we generate some of these? Have y'all heard of the John Maxwell's Rule of 5? Have y'all heard about this? Let me refresh if some of you haven't, because this is one of the best and most truest concepts I've ever seen. The Rule of 5 basically says, John Maxwell says that if you've got a tree in your backyard and you take an axe and you walk out back in the morning or whenever, sometime during the day, and you hit that tree 5 times with that axe and you lay that axe down and you go back inside, and the next day you come back and you hit that tree 5 times and you lay that axe down and you do it day after day after day, sooner or later that tree's going to fall. Now some trees are bigger and they take longer. Some trees are smaller and they take a little less time. But what are those 5 things? What are those 5 strikes, so to speak, that you're going to do to have these conversations or to grow your business? That's what we want to talk about this morning. I'm going to break down some of these options that we have, and then I'm going to give you some specific things. And hopefully then what I'd love for you to do is to be thinking about on a daily basis, what is it that you do that adds the most value to your clients, brings the most value back to your business, to where that you know if I do these 5 things every single day, and then I go do whatever else I need to do, and I come back tomorrow and I do those 5 things, that every single day, sooner or later, that tree's gonna fall for me. And that's what we're going to go through now, is some of these lead sources. And I'm going to go through some of these relatively quickly, and then I'm going to get right to the brass tacks on one of them in particular, okay? Unsolicited video CMAs. We're going to come back to this in just a second. This is literally what I did personally, and I'll share a little bit of information on that. This is something that is core foundation. Tom Ferry's got 3,500 agents right now doing a program called 100 Days to 100K, and he had asked, and I said it was fine with him and also with Jimmy Mackin, and they're using the principle that I developed there, and they just say it, the Jimmy Burgess strategy, as the middle core strategy in generating that 100,000. So this is something, if everybody else in the country is doing it, why are we not doing this locally? So we're going to talk a little more about that. I'm going to share with you how to do some of those and break that down a little more. Also, our sphere of influence. These are great conversation opportunities. Open houses, past clients, circle prospecting, door knocking, be where the leads are, expired listings, for sale by owners, social media birthdays, for rent by owners. I'm going to just rip through these real quick, okay? Renters that moved in 6 months ago, property owners that rented 6 months ago, join and start a leads group. That's some of the stuff. Lauren, you started that running group. How many people do you have in your Facebook?
We literally have like over 1,000, and like at our run last Saturday, we were like, me and the two other people that started looked at each other, we had over 30 people. We were, like,
30 people, and that's less than a year ago, right? Yeah, so just about a year ago. Yeah, and 1,000 people in the Facebook group, and that's been generating so many opportunities for you. So creating these groups or joining these groups and being a part of those things, social media, those local groups, also social media marketing needs posts where we're asking people, hey, a little help here. I've got someone that's looking for this particular type of house. If anyone knows of someone considering selling, please let me know. I'd love to serve these folks at a higher level. Also, buying online leads. We can absolutely buy leads, and it works if you work it. We could also come in and use OpCity. You know, we have it available for y'all, where you have the option of receiving leads, and then on the back end, you pay the referral fee. Also, ask for leads from your company database. Listen, if any of you need some leads, we've got some leads that are in the pond account, we call it, where basically people can fish. Let me know, let Katie know. We'll be glad to transfer some leads. Now, the only request on this is that when we send them to you, you have to contact them within 48 hours. Because if not, we're going to continue to keep boiling those people up in that pond account. But if you need some leads, just let us know. Also, call agents in feeder markets. Find some referral partners in these other markets. Make those connections and continue to work those things. Also, direct message, social media connections. Jay, that's how he started and continues to just grow his business, is staying in contact with people, checking in with them, noticing some of the things they have going on in their lives, and it ultimately comes back to real estate. Buy lunch instead of those leads. The people that are in your sphere of influence, spend some time with them, drive roots in those relationships. Eventually the conversation is going to come to, how's real estate? And that's an opportunity for you to stay top of mind for referrals. And then also be aware of everyone around you. Just be aware. I mean, it's one of these things, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this, of that understanding everything that's around you and being aware of those things. There's opportunities all around us. I want to go through, though, really and talk about unsolicited video CMA specifically. Now, this is one of those that I'm very passionate about because it worked in my business. I started this myself back when I was still selling, and I ended up doing this for the fourth quarter. And what I did is every single day that I was going to be working, that I was in the office or I was working, I didn't work every day, weekends, you know, the holidays, all those things, but 72 days in that fourth quarter, I did an unsolicited video CMA. I ended up listing from those 72, which this is basically, and I'm going to show you all exactly how to do this, recording my screen and giving them an updated value when they didn't even ask for it. I listed $11.2 million, sold $9.1 million, because that was back in the day when we didn't sell everything we listed. And then also ended up being a $3,600 per hour activity for me when I broke it down. Now, here's the thing. It would take me about 30 minutes. I would go in and I would record my screen. I would have a couple of things. I'm going to show you all the exact prompts to do, and then it would go through there. If you want to see some comparables of these or some of these examples, just let me know and I'll be glad to send some of those to you as well. So here's what it looked like. I had 3 tabs basically pulled up. I had the Google Earth tab, and the reason I did this is that it would come in from outer space. So if you start with and you have the tab pulled up and you have the address pulled up for the house, here's what it does is when you do the countdown, if you're using BombBomb's what I use, you could use Zoom Party of One, you could do anything to record your screen. But basically once it says recording started or it's getting ready to start, I would punch enter with that address in Google Earth and it would come from outer space and zoom in on top of that house. Now what's cool about it is with BombBomb, it would actually embed that in there. Now I'm gonna just tell y'all, somebody sends me an email that has a video that starts from outer space and stops on top of my house, I'm probably clicking play on that. The click-through rates were just through the roof on these things. And so literally this gives us that ability to see and to capture their attention. Everybody's just doing this in life in general, and it's the same way with email. They're just clicking through emails. So what do we do to capture their attention? This is what Google Earth gave us the ability to do. Then I just pulled up the MLS. Listen, you could get more detail than I did. You're going to see this. It's pretty easy the way that I did it. It was not like it was some extensive thing. It was just the value I was provided. So pull up the sales detail. I just simply had the active pending sold for that properties like that person's, and I'm going to show you all an example of that in just a second. And then I also had an estimated seller's net sheet. I wanted to give them an estimation of what if they sold this, and I didn't give them the exact price because I didn't know. I needed to see the house to see if there were some things that maybe had been delayed as far as some of the things that needed to be fixed. I needed to see if they had done some upgrades or whatever it was. So I gave them a range, typically in the 50,000 range, and then I made my estimated sheet based on the middle of that number. So here's what these look like. This is the Unsolicited Video CMA, just like the screen capture. And listen, look at this. If y'all tell me y'all can't do video, I mean, look at this. This bald with a bright orange, it must have been Halloween, you know what I mean? Shirt. And this was what I did on the first page. Now I just did a screen capture here, but you can see this was Adagio condos that y'all know over in Blue Mountain. And you can see it just started from outer space and it was just zooming around on top of that, okay? Once I flattened that out then, and I just said, hey, this is Jimmy Burgess. It's been a little while. Just wanted to give you with the market changes an updated idea of where your value is as of September 2023. That's where it started. And then I said, so let me go to the numbers. And then I would go straight to the next page. This was just a simple MLS page pulled up. And I would just say, now the beauty of this is that I didn't have to memorize all this because the numbers were sitting right in front of me. Now I had kind of reviewed it obviously. And I would say, as you can see, and I don't have my glasses on right here, but there's 5 active listings ranging from, and this was way back. So this was like and I gave her the range. And then I went through and said, there's 1 pending, but it's actually a Gulfront one, so that doesn't apply to yours that's on there, but I wanted to show you that there is activity. And then we also have had 5 sales in the last 3 months, ranging from this price point to this price point. And then I would just simply say, listen, this is a snapshot of what we've seen activity-wise for active, pending, and solds in there. This is an idea that if you were considering selling of what you'd be competing with, this is an idea of what's sold so that we would know what the appraisers would be looking at as far as value. And then what I would say, I never ask them if they wanted a list. And I would say also, just know that if you're ever curious about where your value was back in September of 2023, all you got to do is come back into your email and either punch in your address or valuation update, and this will pop right back up. Now here's the kicker on this, because not only did I do what I just told you as far as those numbers, this was in the 4th quarter of 2018. Literally, roughly 18 months later, the pandemic hits. Now you have to understand, I made the shift out of sales into the Chief Growth Officer position. And so when I did that, I did not reach out to any of those people that I'd sent that to between that time and when the pandemic hit. But you remember I had reminded them, hey, if you're ever curious about where your value was or you wanted an updated value, you can always come into your email and pull this up by your address or by valuation update. All of a sudden, because BombBomb would tell me when people were playing these videos, all of a sudden in March and in April of 2020 when the pandemic hit, when everybody's like, what in the world's going on? I started seeing these little pop-ups where people were looking at those videos again. I ended up listing another $5.4 million from those activity that I did 18 months earlier that I'd not even followed up on. So this is the power of this. It's like if we're posting something on social media, you know it's got a lifespan of about 4.7 seconds. And then it's on to the next. This is something where you're adding value in a unique way that makes you stand out. The next thing that I did was that I just had an estimated seller net sheet. And I just broke down on the typical closing costs in our market. Your commission rate would be this. The doc stamps would be this. And then I always said it this way. I'd always say, and by the way, this is a range because I haven't been there, but if you're curious about what it would sell for, it'd take me 5 minutes to walk through your house. I can tell you exactly what it'd sell for. And that was what the kicker was. I wasn't asking if they wanted a list. I just kind of gave that opportunity. The end of it, I didn't say anything about listing. All I said was, listen, I hope this has been of value. Again, if you're ever curious about where your value was in September of 2023, all you have to do is come back into your email and you just simply look up your address or this in the search bar and this email will pop up. Let me know if you're curious about it in the future and I'll be glad to get you a value and I'll talk to you guys soon. That was it. I didn't go crazy hard on asking them if they wanted a list. I didn't get in their face. I just gave value. And every time I've ever given value, it's come back in spades. So this is the one strategy that the biggest regret I had was at $3,600 an hour is, why didn't I do more? You know what I mean? Why did I not do more of this? And now we're seeing this with some of you and some of the people that are doing this, especially I did it one and done, y'all. Can you imagine if I'd come back with that same group and done one 6 months later? Can you imagine the compounding? And it wasn't just those folks. One of these folks came back and said, hey, this is amazing. I'm head of our HOA. Could you do one for the whole subdivision and just let me post that in Facebook? Dang, Skippy, you can't. I'll do that real quick for you. I'll have it over to you in the next couple hours. So it creates opportunities. It gives something to people in a different way, and it helps you add value that really makes you stand out in a market where people are dying for the information. And the biggest thing sellers want to know is, what is their value? This gives them an idea of how to do that, okay? All right, so this is a few keys to remember on this. Remember, put in, as your subject line, the address valuation update in the subject line. Next thing is, give a range of value. Don't give them the entire value. We want to give them a range. First off, you don't know what it is if you haven't been in there recently, because you don't know if they've delayed some of the things that need to be done. You don't know if they've upgraded. You don't know what it looks like. So give them a range of value. Also, check your open and call prospects that view multiple times. So this is the thing that I did, is because I used BombBomb and it would tell me in the morning whether they opened it, how many times they played the video. If somebody, and then I opened it and they saw the next morning that somebody watched this thing 6 times, guess who I was calling first that next day? I was just checking in. Hey, I sent you that email with that video. Just wanted to make sure you got it, see if you had any questions. Boom, that created opportunities. Then if I saw that somebody had not opened it, that was a little white lie maybe, I would send it back to them and I would say, hey, by the way, yesterday I'm afraid I may have sent you an incorrect link. I spent about 30 minutes getting you an update on your value. Here's the correct link. Feel free to let me know if you have any questions. And we went to about 97% open rate with that. So this is one of those things that you want to make sure if you don't want to do all the work and not get it seen, okay? And then schedule your next CMA in your calendar. I mentioned to you I did this one and done. Depending on who it is, I would have it scheduled on a 6-month or an annual basis to do an unsolicited CMAs, especially for those buyers that you've worked with that have so much equity right now, especially for those people. So who do you do this for? You know, because I did 72, and that's people say, well, what did you do? We had actually, I think it was Simon, when he first started with us, he said, I don't know anybody, just moved here. I said, well, do you know anybody in your neighborhood? He said, yeah, I got this neighbor a couple doors down. I said, go to him and ask him if you can do you're just trying something new out and see if he'll give you an honest opinion about it. And he did, and that guy called him back and said, hey, yeah, that was really good, and actually I'm getting ready to think about selling my house. That was his first listing he took. So there's not an excuse here from a standpoint of I know enough sellers. You can go find people to add value to. The homeowners that you meet at open houses, those people that are in the areas that you're geographically farming, those past buyers you have, those folks that are friends and family, because what it does is it again gives you and keeps you top of mind, and your neighbors. So just think about that. I made this list, and I then went down and I obviously did the first ones for what I felt like might be the lowest hanging fruit, the potentials that would sell, the people that told me they might sell, and then do that and just work your way down that list. This is one of those that I'm not speaking from theory. I know that I know because I know what it put financially in my pocket, in my family's pocket, by doing this on a consistent daily basis. Now, that's just one of those. If you're still having trouble figuring out, okay, well, how do I do this business? What do I do? This is crazy where we've gotten to with all the artificial intelligence. We're going to be doing this. That's what I was speaking on the last 2 days on the road. This is what's amazing to me, is all these options. So look at this and see what this option is. This is what I did just to punch in, just to get an example. It says, I'm a real estate agent in Santa Rosa Beach, Florida that closed 18 transactions last year. Please give me a plan of action along with marketing strategies and daily activities to close 36 transactions in 2024. Y'all, this thing says certainly doubling your transaction is a is a big goal, but here's the activities to do. And it gave me the assessments and the goals. It gave the daily activities. It gave how to expand your network. It talks about enhanced marketing strategies, client experience, expanding your team, regular review, staying updated, persistent mindset. And after I looked at that thing, because I consider myself decent at coaching, you know what I mean, and planning, I looked at that thing and I was like, I don't know that I would change a dang thing this thing gave me. It's amazing. If somebody did what it just said, they would double their transaction count next year. Now, the question is not a matter, and this is what the biggest issue is. Most of us know what to do. It's the execution and doing it on a consistent daily basis. It's overcoming when those obstacles come. It's stepping through and understanding and trusting that process. Now, the beauty of this is that we got a group in our company that absolutely works their way through that. Our group that we have every single Friday on that group that comes in and does the accountability. We talk about overcoming these things. We share these things. The biggest issue you can have is being in this business and being a silo, where you don't understand that you're not the only one that's having sellers that you can't get them to price the place right. That you can't be the only one that's got a buyer that goes out and buys a car 3 days before closing. You know what I mean? You got to understand, these are the things that everybody goes through. And there is wisdom in the counsel of many. So I just would encourage you, surround yourself with a number of other people to do those things that help you. Now I'm going to go through this, and these are some things you'll fill out. So where will your conversations come from? You know, we just listed a bunch of those things, but where will you specifically target? I put 7 up here. Now we talked about the rule of 5. I think you ought to have at least 5 daily activities that you're utilizing on this. I use 7 because you never know when these things are going to change. You never know which ones are going to work. I mean, the ones that are going to work for Joey are going to work differently for Anna. It's just the way it is. So I like to have 7 so that if one is not working, I'm constantly updating and referring new things in. So where are those going to come from for you? And then also, I would encourage you, if you're not growing, you're dying, what are you going to do to go to some type of an event this next year? What are the events that you're going to attend? You know, I mean, literally, I mean, there is... Jay, how much do you think you make every time you go to one of these events, as far as an X on your number that you do with referrals?
I mean, it's hard to even come up with a number. You know, I mean, it's worth it though. 1.25 event, you know, that's the goal.
Jay does 1.25. I'm the same way. I'm a junkie because every single time I get an idea that I can apply, that's why I put the 4 up here. It may be 1 for you. You may have to start somewhere. But whatever it is, find some events where you're going to get value. If you're curious about those, let me know, because obviously we have groups going just about every month and a half, 2 months, we have an event that we're taking a group to. Make sure you're investing in yourself and your business and the way that you can serve your clients by attending some of these events. These are the different areas, okay? I just talked about business. But if you only succeed in business, you're going to be a failure. So here's the thing. What are your commitments and desire to grow spiritually, family-wise, physical, knowledge, relationships outside of your family, wealth and debt removal, and then also service to others? I would encourage you to focus in and set some goals in all of those areas. There's a couple things that I want to close with. Have y'all heard of this red car theory? You know what I'm talking about? And basically what the red car theory says is that if I were to ask y'all, how many red cars did you see coming into the office this morning? Nobody knows, because we weren't focused on red cars, right? But now that I said that, I'm so sorry. On your ride home, in your mind, you're going to be like 2, 3, 4. You're going to start counting them because we brought it to the front of your mind. So what do we do to make the things that are most important for our business and for our life to keep them in front of us and make them important? So here's something that I always did. I like to keep a monthly goal tracker, okay? Now these are in here. You can expand these. I was old school. I used to do, I mean, it was like it was a high school project or something. I would go get a piece of, what's the board that you used to use for in high school? You know, the piece of board. And I would put that up on my wall in front of myself. I would do these types of graphs where I would have if I knew that I wanted to take 24 listings or 48 listings or whatever it was for me that year, and I would have that where it would be a monthly basis. And I would actually have the block that would say the goal, and I would have that already queued in there. And then I would have a blank one that every time I took one, I would go in, I'd color it in, old school color it in. Because every time I did that, it was physically like I was doing something. It's like a checklist. It just built momentum. I also did this with my monthly sales volume goal. I did this with transactions, where I would actually have these goals put up on the screen where I could keep them in front of me so that every day when I walked in, I was seeing that. I also did the next 10 list. You know, we've talked a lot about that, where I would have the people that I was thinking about would possibly be my next 10 buyers. I would have their name. I would have the type of property they're looking for, the price range, and then I would have how much the estimated commission net to me would be. And I would have a total of those 10 people because I wanted to keep those things in front of me. And then I'd have my next 10 listings, and then I'd have my next 10 most likely people to send me a referral. Every morning I would look up and I would would see who those people were. I kept a last time that I talked to them date because I wanted to keep in front of me the most important people that were in my business so that I didn't lose focus on them. So I used the red car theory, so to speak, to make sure that I kept that stuff in front of me, because every single time that we open ourselves up to these and we're focusing on these things, we see more of them. So these are some of those monthly goal trackers. Quarterly listing, I did it on quarterly basis also so that we can make adjustments if we needed to, higher or lower, on the listings, the sales volume, and also on transactions. Also, the listing goal for the annual and also for the sales volume for the year. That gave us some opportunity really to keep these goals in front of us so that on a daily basis, I remembered that before I left, I was going to have those 5 to 10 or whatever it is for you, real estate specifically related conversations, whatever that number is for you. I'm going to close with this. Somebody's going to have their best year ever. Why not you? Why not us? I mean, listen, there will be winners and losers in every market. We can't control what the market does, but we can control these activities that we do that we know are going to give us an opportunity to grow. So my biggest question for you is why not you? And it's not even just about real estate, y'all. Somebody's going to be the best husband, the best wife, somebody's going to be the best parent, somebody's going to be the best friend, somebody's going to be the best of themselves they've ever been as far as spiritually and emotionally and showing up. So what is it that we're going to do to have that best year ever? And if we focus on those things and we stay focused in on being the best version, the version that we were created to be, everything else will take care of itself. Appreciate it, you guys. I can't wait to see the results this next year. Thanks for watching the video. I specifically chose the video below for you because it builds on the one you just watched. I hope it's helpful, and I'll talk to you soon.